What is up, everybody? Welcome back to KD&D, the show where we talk about all things Dungeons and Dragons. And today, I want to talk to you guys about some of the drama in the D&D community surrounding the development of OneD&D and the open gaming license for that edition of Dungeons and Dragons, or the lack thereof. There's been a lot of speculation. I'm going to try and break it down for you today. We're going to break down what started all of this drama, what is currently in the SRD and the Open Gaming License, what has been stated by Wizards of the Coast, what's going to be changed, and the implications that this has for the hobby moving forward. So recently, Wizards of the Coast said that they think that Dungeons and Dragons as a hobby is under-monetized, okay? There's confusion if they're just talking about the game, or if this was a way that they were explaining to their board about their plans to push D&D forward into more of a lifestyle brand, with things like the upcoming movie Honor Among Thieves, with the big video game coming out next year of Baldur's Gate 3, and selling of like t-shirts and merch and things like that. But since they had been very quiet about an open gaming license, and then we heard this thing about under monetization, a lot of people were starting to really wonder what was going on here because they've been very quiet about it. To add fuel to the fire, Wizards of the Coast had sent out recently an email to a lot of larger creators. This was brought to the attention of the community by Ted from Immersion, talking about how they wanted to share a little bit of information about what was going to be happening with the Open Gaming License and other 6E plans going forward. But in order to be a part of that meeting, those creators would have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. This means that legally you can't tell anybody anything about what you heard in that meeting. So people are a little bit concerned now about, okay, well then why are they trying to muzzle people after getting this information? Seems a little sus. So as fears start to develop about potential limitations that could be put on third-party creators, Immersion put out a hashtag OpenDND, to begin a conversation about this, and it quickly went trending. Now, because of that trend and all of this speculation, Wizards of the Coast has made a statement to give us a little bit of information. I'm going to try and break it down for you quickly now. This here is the statement that they put out. It is on D&D Beyond. I will drop a link in the video below. I'm not going to read it to you, but I will tell you more or less what's in it. So they have announced that they are revising the Open Gaming License from version 1.0 to 1.1. This will happen in early 2023. And in 2024, they will update the SRD, or the System Reference Document. For those who don't know, the OGL is what allows you to publish things from the SRD. What kinds of things are included in the SRD? I'll get to that in just a minute. But their statement continues, letting us know that all existing content, both official and third party, will be compatible with OpenD&D or whatever, with OneD&D or whatever the 6th edition of Dungeons and Dragons winds up being called. But it does remain to be seen exactly how compatible these things will be. Is stuff from the old editions going to be just as powerful as the stuff from OneD&D? Are third-party classes like going to work out well with the way they're changing classes? For example, they just released saying that clerics are going to get their subclass at first level. Does that unbalance third-party cleric content at this point? It'll be interesting to find out. So they talk about how the Open Gaming License allows people to produce printed media or static electronic files, which would include things like PDFs. They say that it shouldn't be affecting any existing services or content that people are creating. Most VTTs like Foundry and Roll20 have custom agreements with Wizards of the Coast, and basically it looks like they'll be allowed to continue doing what they're doing, but they might need to update their agreement with them. It's very possible that with Wizards' acquisition of D&D Beyond and their attempts to make their own virtual tabletop, that they might try to find ways to squeeze companies like Roll20, Foundry, and other VTTs out of the market. Right here, they're breaking it down. If you make commercial content, relatively little is going to change for most creators. For those of you who are selling custom content, here are the new things you'll need to do. 1, accept the license terms and let us know what you're offering for sale. Already people are commenting about how, okay, well, if I'm accepting terms, is this even an open gaming license anymore? That is the whole meaning of the word open, is I don't have to sign anything or accept anything. It's just implicitly allowed. So that'll be interesting to see exactly what that means. Number 2, you will need to report all revenue related to open game license material annually. And that's if you make more than $50,000 a year in revenue, not in profit, in revenue, an important distinction. Thirdly, you need to include a creator product badge on your work, so probably just WotC's stamp of approval in digital form. Fourth and kind of biggest change, I would say, is this thing on the bottom here where they say that for the fewer than 20 creators worldwide who make more than $750,000 income in a year, they are going to be adding a royalty starting in 2024. So creators making significant money selling D&D supplements and games, they won't have to pay royalties in 2023, but they will have to in the future. Again, this is revenue, not profit. They have stated less than 20 people. That's going to include people like Kobold Press, Critical Role, Ghostfire Gaming. But again, if you have a really big company, $750,000 in revenue, that's a lot of money, but that doesn't include the expenses your company is paying. And then how many people work for you? How many people are you splitting those profits between to pay for them to live, right? Like $750,000 split among 10 people. If that was all just profit, that's $75,000 a year. That's a great living, but I'm sure a lot of companies are more than 10 people. So OGL, SRD, what do these things mean? Well, the open game license, as we've said, is what allows you to sell things from the system reference document. You can think of the SRD as basically the barest bones of what Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is. There are some things in the SRD that you are not allowed to sell as part of the open gaming license because those things are specific Wizards or D&D intellectual property. First 2 pages of this 400-page document is just the legalese of the open game license. The remaining 400 or so pages are things like the races of Dungeons & Dragons and the classes. I believe I'll get to the barbarian in a moment here. Yeah, so there's those things, and then at the very bottom you have things like monsters, okay? So this little section that I've highlighted right here are the things it specifically says are not open content. That includes the proper name, Dungeons & Dragons, D&D, Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master, Monster Manual. I won't read this entire thing, but you can see it all for you. But it includes things like, so you can't sell anything in the Forgotten Realms or in Faerun. It includes proper names like Mordenkainen. It includes places like the Underdark. You'll note that it also includes the proper names of a lot of the planes of existence. Wizards of the Coast can't trademark hell, but they can trademark the 9 layers of, where is it? The 9 hells of Bator. You'll see towards the bottom, it also includes a couple of magic items like the Book of Exalted Deeds and specific monsters like the Beholder, Carrion Crawlers, Gith-Zerai, Gith-Yankee. You cannot and have never been able to create products and sell them with these kinds of monsters in them. This is why if you watch Legend of Vox Machina, they don't refer to any of the gods that the characters follow. I think the best example is Pike, their cleric, usually follows the goddess Sarenrae, but in the series, they just refer to her only as the Everlight. So what does all this mean moving forward for the hobbyists and creators of Dungeons & Dragons? Well, if you're a hobbyist, not really that much unless you really care about playing the official version of D&D. If you're a creator and you make a living doing these things might get a little bit more complicated. Now, I am not a lawyer or an expert, but I do know the channels that I'm going to be keeping an eye on to keep myself informed. The Rules Lawyer is someone on YouTube with about 10,000 subscribers that I watched a video on. They released about a 20-minute video really breaking down that document I just showed. Again, I'll mention Nerd Immersion, who kind of blew the whistle on this whole thing to begin with. Keep an eye on their channel. I've also seen some really useful, interesting takes from channels like DungeonCraft, QuestingBeast, and Dungeon Masterpiece has announced that they are going to be having a lawyer on their channel to talk about the specifics of this in the near future. So check all of them out and give them a subscribe. They have some quality content that talks about all of these kinds of things and how it will update in the future. I'm very interested to know what's going to happen to companies like Roll20 and Foundry. I currently run games on Roll20 and would hate to see something like that go. I have been planning on trying out D&D Beyond's virtual tabletop, but if I don't like it, I want to be able to stick with Roll20. It seems pretty obvious that Wizards of the Coast, or really more appropriately Hasbro, sees that the future of the way they can make money on this hobby is by digitizing the product. So I've heard someone refer to this as the Fortnitification of a hobby or of a product. And the idea is that they're going to now be creating the potential for endless amounts of microtransactions by offering digital skins, customizations to tokens, magic items, certain sets. I have to imagine they're going to more or less leave analog and tabletop gamers alone. There's little ways to kind of control that. QuestingBeast talks a lot about how really the open gaming license is kind of toothless. As long as you're not trying to sell things with Wizards IP, they really can't come after you for much. At least that's the layman understanding of it. The big concern that I have moving forward is how are third-party content creators going to potentially be pushed out of this new virtual space, right? Nothing says that WotC has to let Critical Role or Ghostfire Gaming or Kobold Press sell their stuff on D&D Beyond's virtual tabletop. If they want to just try and keep their mainstream audience to their self and they push that mainstream audience digital, that might hurt those companies. So I wouldn't say that all of the hype around this has been useless fear-mongering. I think there are some legitimate fears. It seems like things aren't as bad as they could be, right? But it seems like we're constantly trading for the lesser of two evils in this world. And the fact that Wizards is calling a $1 billion product an under-monetized brand is always just going to leave a little bit of a sting or a sour taste in your mouth, right? At the end of the day, it's a fantastic hobby, and I know that the tabletop version of this hobby isn't going to go anywhere. QuestingBeast has a fantastic video about the difference between official D&D and folk D&D, and I think if Hasbro does things to try and really milk this audience for as much money as they're worth, we're going to see a huge shift to the folk D&D side of things, just like you did when Pathfinder kind of spun off. So those are my thoughts. I tried to keep this video quick to try and keep you informed and bring you up to speed on what's happening. If you want to know more, please let me know in the comments below. Drop a like on this video and subscribe to stick around for more D&D related news into the next year. Have a great day. Number 2 says report all OGL revenue related